Hello and welcome to another episode of Upward Trajectory. Today I'm so excited to be joined by Laura Diehl. She is the founder of GPS Hope, which stands for Grieving Parents Support Hope. Am I correct on that, Laura?
Almost. Grieving Parents Sharing Hope.
Sharing Hope. I'm so sorry. I'm glad I
That's
asked.
okay.
Well, welcome to the show, Laura. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I am really excited to be here. This is a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. And we were talking several weeks ago when we were just exploring you being on the show, and you shared your story with me, and it resonated so much with me. I just knew I had to have you on. So I'm hoping for our listeners, you can kind of take us back to what we discussed and share with them.
Okay. Well, my story, while the Grieving Parents Sharing Hope is because we did lose a child, and it does take you to a very dark place. And my story is when my oldest daughter was 3 years old, she was diagnosed with bone cancer. It was in her left leg. And so as a 3-year-old, she had her little left leg amputated and went through 9 months of chemotherapy. And she lived through that, did fine. The bone cancer is you either have it or you don't. But they did find out that later on, one of the drugs they were giving at the time caused heart damage in children. And so she
Wow.
was tested, and she did have moderate heart damage, which was fine until she got pregnant and got married and was pregnant with her first child. And that really escalated the heart issues because pregnancy is a lot of work for the heart.
Absolutely.
And so, so she ended up living in a hospital in Madison, Wisconsin for the last few months because they didn't know what her heart was going to do, and they had to have her there if there was an emergency situation. She got to the point where they knew her heart wasn't going to take much more, and so they had to get the baby out. They gave her a 50-50 chance of surviving labor and delivery, and she did make it through. I know that my husband and I are family. We are people of faith, and when they were taking her back for the delivery, I was crying. And I told my husband, I don't know why I'm crying, because at this point we'd been through the cancer and all of that and other things in our family. And I said, I know that I trust God. And he said, well, we don't know which way we're going to have to trust him for. And that
Wow.
was exactly right. So we were blessed. She lived through that. Her daughter lived through that. And our granddaughter is turning 18 in less than a month.
Oh
So
my goodness.
this was a little while back, but that did escalate her heart issues. And so for the next 10 years, she struggled with heart issues to the point where she needed to be on the heart transplant list. And she wasn't even healthy enough for that at that point. So they opened her up, gave her a 6-pound pump inside of her chest that ran the left side of her heart, hoping to get her to transplant. That last year and a half, she was in the hospital more than she was out, just a lot of things going on. She ended up with like a dozen ambulance rides. She had 3 medical helicopter rides with a stroke and just other major things. But then on October 12th, she ended up having the pump taken out. It was just a weird thing that happened. The pump was shorting her heart in and out. She had cut the drive line, accidentally sliced it, just a bizarre thing. And so the pump was taken out, and they closed her up and just said, there's really nothing else we can do for her right now. And so on October 12th, 2011, my daughter transferred over into eternity, and I picture her dancing with 2 legs because she lived her life with only 1 leg, and no more heart issues or anything like that. And it's great to tell people, oh, but they're in a better place. But it's like, no, my child's place is with me. I mean, you can't help but, yes, my head knows that, but man, my heart is just, I can't even explain to you the place of suffocating darkness that it just takes you to as a parent. You can't describe it. You don't want anybody else to know what it's like because it is so horrible. So that is my story. And because it took us to such a dark place, and we didn't know anyone who lost a child, and we ended up, people started coming to us, and it's like, well, I don't know what to do either. Let's just walk this together. And it eventually just kind of organically grew. I woke up in the middle of the night with a book title and chapters. I wrote a book, ended up writing like 5 books. I have 7 now. And so it just kept growing and growing as people started coming to us, and eventually became what we are today, GPS Hope. And we actually live in a motorhome and do this full time to offer resources and support to grieving parents.
Well, first and foremost, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Oh,
There,
thank
there
you.
are truly no words. And
Mm,
having had friends who have lost children, it's just the hardest thing to watch someone go through that. And my heart goes
mm-hmm,
out to you and your family. And but the bright side, and that's what I really want to concentrate
mm-hmm,
on here, is that
great.
you turn this into something that is a light of hope for others, and
Mm-hmm.
you're helping others through their grief. And can we go a little more into how that works and how people find you and what you can help them with?
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I've written several books, so that's how some people find us. We travel in our motorhome, and so I speak at different places. So a lot of times we'll get invited to speak to grief groups, or if we just have parents that we know or somewhere along the way that we're traveling, we'll just meet them for a cup of coffee or go out for dinner because we love the one-on-one. I think that's probably one of the most effective things that we do because you can share your heart. And as a parent, a lot of people don't realize that anything 5 years and under, most experts will say when you lose a parent is considered fresh grief. And parents are really good at putting on a mask because people around us think we need to be okay after a certain amount of time, and we're just
Right.
not. And so we hide it, we put on masks. And so to be able to give parents a safe place without shame or judgment, to say we have been in that place of darkness, we don't know what you're going through exactly. And that's another thing, the whole comparison. Oh, I know how you feel, I lost my, whatever, and I cried for 6 months straight. And it's like, I don't even know how you feel if you lost another child. I know how I felt, and I know the darkness it put me in, and I know what I hear from other parents. So that the comparison thing isn't very helpful. Just
No. Yeah, and you
yeah.
bring up a great point too, is that, everyone has their own journey, and there's going
Yes.
to be some people that it takes years and years and
Hmm.
years to go through, and
Yes.
others that take different amounts of time. And the judgment out there, I hadn't even thought of that. The judgment that to wear these masks and pretend you're okay and carry on with your life, although you're probably living as a shell
Hmm. Yes.
of who you were, and you're just going through the
Yes.
motions on autopilot.
Yes.
That's such a profound thing that we probably don't realize and think of, that is really good to bring to light. Um, so I guess the unimaginable is what you live through, and so many
Hmm.
parents that you are in this network through have lived through. Maybe if somebody's hearing this and knows someone or is going through this themselves, what's the first step? I mean, obviously, shock is probably the
Yeah.
first thing that you go through, and then when the shock starts to wear off and you just don't know how to put one foot in front of the other,
Hmm.
what advice would you have for someone?
I suggest that they connect with other parents. Find other parents who have been on this journey, who are ahead of you, so that they can offer hope and they can let you know you're not going crazy. No, I did the same thing. I thought the same thing. Excuse me. Um, because we think we're going crazy, literally. We think we have early Alzheimer's. It messes with the chemicals in our brain, even because it's a trauma. The death of a child is considered traumatic grief. It's a trauma. And a lot of parents have PTSD on top of that. And so we have to give ourselves a lot of grace because everything is a mess. Our soul is a mess, our emotions, our mental state, our spiritual state. So many, especially if they're Christians and believe in God, they're angry at God. They don't understand, why would God allow this kind of pain in my life? Why did he not stop this? There is just, I can't even begin to tell you, excuse me again. I can't even begin to tell you just the things that a parent goes through, and physically their immune system is compromised. It's amazing to me how many moms get diagnosed with cancer within that first year. I mean, not to scare anyone, but we have to take care of ourselves, and we don't want to. And I can't explain it, but I have yet to ever talk to a parent or hear from a parent. I get a lot of emails that feel like, I just want to die. I just want to go be with my child. And you may have other children, a spouse. I had an international children's ministry, a job you love, whatever, but your heart is so shattered. You cannot imagine living the rest of your life in this much pain and darkness. And there is a suicide rate also. And so I think it's so important to connect with other parents, because you may have a support system from family and friends, but they're only going to be able to encourage you so much. And they're not going to know that, yeah, you feel like you're going crazy. You can't find your car in the parking lot and everybody, ha ha, ha, I've done that before. It's like, no, it's different, because I remember walking out from a store, walking around a parking lot crying because I don't even remember driving to the store. I have no clue where I parked my car. I don't remember what door I walked in. I don't have anything in my mind to even pull from to jog my memory of where my car is. And so it is a lot different. The forgetfulness, the confusion, we can be driving a car and have to pull over because we have no clue. I don't remember where I was going, much less how to get there. So you have to stop the car and figure out, okay, where was I going? What am I supposed to be doing? So it's a very scary time. And so I think it's so important to connect with other parents who can say, yep, yep, yep. And it's not always going to be like this. I promise. If you work through the grief, yes, you'll always have pain. It's almost like an undercurrent of grief that's there, like a chronic back pain. You learn to
Always
live
there.
with it. It's always there.
Always
And
there. Yeah.
some days you'll have triggers and you'll feel it more than others. And the birthdays, anniversary death dates, Mother's Day is horrible, or Father's Day if you're a dad. Just different events. All of your life will be bittersweet. Our daughter was the oldest. We have 5 children, and only one of our sons had their sister at their wedding.
Oh,
So, having wedding pictures, it's a very bittersweet time
yeah.
because
Future
someone's
happy
not there.
events that you
Yes.
miss the loss and you miss
Yeah.
the what ifs and if onlys. And
Yes. Think, hmm
oh,
I
I was
guess
just going to
things
say
that
that
really,
I love what you brought up. Well, not love, but it's just
right,
so
right. I know.
true that the trauma, it's truly a trauma, and the PTSD that follows. It's just, you think of, when you think of PTSD, at least I think of, Vietnam War vets, and,
Right.
just
Yes.
the constant triggers and what
Hmm.
they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And the way you described it, it's so similar that there's just the analogies and everything go hand in hand. And the the, so I'd like to talk more about, like, the future and finding joy
Hmm.
again and finding happiness and fulfillment again. And when all these things keep popping up, like you said, for happy
Hmm.
events that, she should have been here or he should have been here for this. How
Hmm.
do you cope with that?
Yeah, well, before we turn that corner, I do want to add that for years, if you're listening and you know someone who's lost a child, you need to give them a lot of grace also, because it can be years down the road and there's a wedding or there's a baby shower or there's a graduation and that parent doesn't want to come, or a family reunion. It's like, oh, come on, it'll be good for you. It's like, no, it won't. I'm going to sit there and cry through the whole thing because my daughter should have been there for this. And it's a trigger for me, and I don't want to bring everybody else down. It's not about me and my daughter. It's about whatever this event is. And so to understand and give them grace. If they feel like they just can't be there, then they need to do what they need to do to get through, that moment, that season, that event, or whatever it is. So as far as turning the corner, I think, like I said, the one thing is finding other parents who can support you through the walk, through the journey, through the darkness, and give you hope. Because I think that's one of the biggest things, is you really feel like there's no hope there. You can't even, it's so dark, you can't even see hope of ever wanting to live with meaning or purpose again. How do you do that? How do you live without your child? Your future's supposed to have your child in it. And it's like, our daughter had an amputation. It's a lot like that. It's, have a part of you, a very part of your being has been cut off from you when your child dies, and you have to learn how to live with that part of you missing. And it can
Wow.
be done. And having a front row seat to our daughter with an amputation at 3 years old, yes, every day she had to decide, am I going to put my leg on? Every day it was like things like unusual conversations. Becca, get your leg out of the living room. We're tripping over it. Just crazy things like that you don't even think about. But she learned how to live without a leg, and she lived a very full life without her leg. Did it look different? Yes. She couldn't run and keep up with the other kids. If her stump got a rash or something, she couldn't wear her leg. She'd have to walk on crutches. It was a very different life, but it didn't stop her from living a very full life of meaning and purpose. And she did die at age 29. And so we had a front row seat to that. And we actually travel with that little leg. You know, we keep things from our
Oh my
kids. And that was just one of those weird things that I held on to for whatever reason. So I have her first little 3-year-old prosthetic leg, little tiny thing, and we travel with it to show, to actually be a visual of, you can learn to live again with a part of you missing, with your child missing, and it's not going to look the same, but you can. And I think one of the other things, other than getting a support system from other parents, which you can do through us, Facebook pages, but make sure you're not connecting with other parents who are still in that dark place, because that'll just keep you spiraling downward, because they don't
God, it.
give hope. And like you already said, it can take years. We're all on a different timetable. So someone could be 8 years in, still in darkness, and say, oh, you'll never get any better. It'll always be this way. No, it won't. If you work through the grief and you do certain things. And one of those things is, I know something that is very dear to your heart, but it's so important, is to find things to be thankful for. I
Yes.
really do think that is a key, and I share that a lot. I have blogs and podcasts, and I share that a lot. And a lot of parents, it's just like roll your eyes, turn you off, but it's like, nope, 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 just listen to me. Because even if it's all, and I had suggested to me, and this is what I did, was I got a notebook, I put it by my bed, and every night before I went to sleep for quite a long time, I would make myself write down like maybe 3 things that I could think of to be thankful for. And it might be something as simple as, I smelled cookies baking today and they smelled really good. You know, walking past a bakery and the bakery smelled good.
Any
Thank
little
you.
thing, any
any
little thing,
any
it will
because,
help
and
get you.
people will say, be thankful, you're alive, you're breathing, and a parent will go, I'm not thankful for that. I don't want to be alive and breathing.
Right.
I'm just being gut level honest, we don't. So that's not something we can be thankful for a while. But those little things, and like just last night I climbed into bed, and we were helping one of our sons and his family move. And so I got into bed really late, and I climbed in, and my thought was, oh, thank you for these clean sheets and this comfortable bed. Something as simple as that. But to make yourself find those things. Thank you. This is another really strange one. I had one of the strangest things ever that I have been thankful for. And I may cry when I share this. Um, but I have some dear friends of ours, and they lost their daughter about 6 months after, almost 6 months to the day after we lost our daughter, to suicide. It was a postpartum suicide issue.
Oh, that's so
And
tragic.
yeah, and we found out yesterday that they lost another son.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
And one of the things is, we have so many fears that we never had before after our child died. And I one of my books that I have is a coloring book journal, because everybody says journal, write. And that's another key, but a lot of times it's like, I don't know what to write. And so this book I have, it's got over 40 words that have to do with our grief journey. And then there's a journaling prompt. And I do my own book, and the first page I colored was the word fear.
oh,
and
that's
and the journaling prompt is, one of my greatest fears now is, and I wrote that I'll lose another child. Because once, people don't like this topic, because it's a horrible thought to think that one of my children could die. And so a lot of people, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to go there. And so thank you for just opening a door to allow this conversation, because it is a very uncomfortable conversation. But once you've lost a child and you meet other people who've lost other children, you know it can happen to you, and you know it can happen again. And so yesterday we were driving back to our place, and we were, talking about this couple, these friends of ours, and praying for them. And I had this thought, which is just, like I said, one of the strangest things I've ever been thankful for. And it was, thank you, Lord, that I've only lost one. I,
yes.
I, as crazy as that sounds, and that's something that can be thrown at grieving parents. Well, at least you have your other kids. If you have to start anything with the words "at least," don't say it. At least you know where they are. At least you have other children. At least whatever it is. At least you know that God says He'll work it all out for good. Um, don't just be there. just be there, love on them, hug them, let them talk about their child. Well, if I talk about their child, they're going to cry and it's going to hurt. I guarantee you they're thinking about their child and it's already hurting. And one of the greatest gifts you can give us is to let us talk about our child. Like, we still want to celebrate their birthdays. Why would you want to do that? Because our child was born and came into this world. Our child lived. They didn't just die. Our child lived. You don't forget that.
Celebrate the
And
memories and the good times and all of the good that was there.
yeah, and at
Yeah.
first, those memories are hard. They're just stabbing pains because that's all you have left of your childhood, the memories. But after a while, and it can take a few years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, those memories start being something that warm your heart instead of stabbing your heart.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. I love that eventually those memories will warm you instead of hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a
Yeah.
great point to close up on. So I have been really enjoyed having you on, Laura, and I want to know if anybody needs to reach out to you, wants to hear more about GPS Hope, and maybe has someone or is someone themselves that needs to reach out. How would they go about doing that? How would they find you?
The best place is to go to our website, which is gpshope.org. If you are a parent who's lost a child, we have a weekly word of hope that I send out every week. We have well over 1,000 parents that get that right now. And check out the blogs and the podcasts. We've got a YouTube channel, GPS Hope, that they can check out. The podcast is the full name, Grieving, Parents Sharing Hope. If you haven't lost a child, but you're more interested in what we do, and maybe as we travel, hear about some of the parents that we touch and where we are, we do have a Facebook page that's called Friends of GPS Hope, and that's for people who really want to follow us and what we're doing and maybe support us. We are a 501c3 ministry, and so we do live on, and all of our resources are offered by the support of others who pour into this charitable organization. And so me personally, you can email me at Laura, Laura, at gpshope.org, and check out the books that I've written. When Tragedy Strikes has won several awards. You can get my books anywhere, and that I've written one, Come Grieve Through Our Eyes, which is for people who want to know what it's like for a grieving parent, to know better how to help them. And the When Tragedy Strikes isn't just for grieving parents. I've had so many people say that any loss, it's just got so much good stuff in it to help them.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for being a beacon of hope to others, and sharing all of this and helping so many people. And you yourself went through it, and you had to live that journey, and you are still grieving, and you probably always will have some
Yes.
component of
Mm-hmm.
grieving. But to turn this around into a beacon of light for others is just such an amazing testimony of the strength within you and the strength of your daughter.
Yes.
That's there as well, because she's still there, and that she's helping as well through all this. So it's so wonderful to have talked to you and have you on the show, Laura. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing. I'm sure you're going to help a lot of people through this message. So
thank you, Jennifer. Yes, and just remember, anybody, no matter what you've been through, you can live a life of meaning and purpose again if you do the work.
There's joy again. That's so important to remember. Well, thank you, Laura, and thank you so much for joining us again on another episode of Upward Trajectory. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.